Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Zach Moore Show. Today I'm going to be going over an article that I wrote for Baltimore Sports and Life. It's called the title of the article is "A New School Smash Mouth Style of Offense versus Belichick's Team Building Model." As always, you can support the podcast by buying my book, Caponomics: Building Super Bowl Champions, available on Amazon. You can also subscribe, download, and give a 5-star rating for the show on iTunes and or a thumbs up on YouTube, whatever. The other things you can do is, if you're into jiu-jitsu, go to jujitsuplanner.com. You'll get 10% off with my coupon code GOHARD, and 10% will go to Justin Wren's Fight for the Forgotten charity. If you want to learn more about what Justin is doing, he was just on Joe Rogan's podcast yesterday. And, he's a blessing to people in the Pygmy tribes of both Uganda and now, originally the Congo and now Uganda. So he's doing incredible work in Africa, helping provide Pygmy communities with the ability to self-sustain themselves and move forward as a culture. He also is big on supporting the youth in our country that are bullied. He recently had a Stand with Raiden sort of campaign. He's been working with this young special needs boy Raiden, who's about 12, I believe, and they're both from Oklahoma City. So he connected with Raiden, and Raiden has been getting kind of harassed and bullied by kids for a large portion of his childhood. And Justin does work that helps with bully prevention, building character in young men, and he's a really good guy. So check out that, and you can also donate by going to go.rallyup.com/forgotten, which is in part which is a part of the Belichicks All Heart Charity Fantasy Football League that I'm doing this season with my buddies at Belichicks, and we're trying to help some people out with that. So everyone's got their own charity. Mine's Fight for the Forgotten, thankfully, and I'm happy to be a part of that. So getting into this right here, Sunday Night Football this week is the Ravens and the Patriots. The Ravens are being powered by a Lamar Jackson-led offense with offensive coordinator Greg Roman and head coach John Harbaugh. And something that Harbaugh said before the year was that the way this offense is going to be run is going to be something that it provides another evolution of offensive football, similar to what Bill Walsh did years ago. And it's a natural evolution, actually, because not every, but a large portion of college football quarterbacks now are coming into league with the ability to rush. So Jackson is a part of this evolution. It's a bit of what I talked about last week about a lot of quarterbacks having the financial resources, whether to have training in high school and at the high school level and in college, and they're all running systems from high school on up that require the quarterback to be able to run the football a little bit. So they've become experienced in this. And what Greg Roman has done now is he has generated a system that all the way back to Colin Kaepernick and then his years with Tyrod Taylor. He's created a system that takes advantage of this ability to rush. So Colin Kaepernick, when you look at Greg Roman has had the ability to, he's won a game against Bill Belichick, and he's been competitive in 2 others. They put up 32 points with Tyrod Taylor in 2015 against the Patriots. So, and that was the year that the Patriots, 2015? Yeah, Patriots won in 2015, right? So 14 was... No. Patriots won... No, Broncos won in 2015. Patriots won in 2014. Seahawks won in 2013. Right. So Kaepernick beat the Patriots in 2012, 41-34. He went 14 for 25, a 56% completion percentage for 221 yards with 4 touchdowns to 1 interception, plus 7 rushes for 28 yards. And he had an incredible 4 fumbles in that game. Tyrod Taylor led the Bills to a loss, 40-32, and a 20-13 loss In the game they put up 32 points, he was 23 for 30, 76.7% completion percentage, 242 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So he had quarterbacks who made mistakes, and what Roman is now hoping for is that Lamar Jackson is, which is a step above these guys, and he's utilized play action. He's utilized this great offensive line, which if I was a GM, I've been thinking about this for the last few months, is that if I was a general manager, I would probably just simply draft the offensive line, as long as I'd of course secure a quarterback first as well, or not first, or in some capacity, in some order. I would make sure I had my quarterback, of course. But I know I'm being extreme when I say this, but is it crazy to just simply draft your offensive and maybe your defensive line with your first and second round picks for years to come? Because from where I'm sitting, all these years I've looked at this, and the experience I had playing football, being a wide receiver too in college, you began to really understand that wide receiver groups at every college have 6, 7, 8, 9 guys who can produce. Offensive linemen, and I'm talking about at every level. There's a bunch of guys. Just a supply and demand issue, right? Is what I'm getting at, and that there's only so many 300+ pound athletes who are capable of doing the kinds of athletic things that offensive linemen are required to do. So, moving further into that, this Ravens team has been built through the draft. The 6th overall pick in the 2016 draft, Ronnie Stanley, is the team's starting left tackle. 2018 third-round pick, Orlando Brown, plays right tackle after falling in the draft due to something that has nothing to do with playing the offensive line, his 40 time. That was a part of the reason. I'm sure there were other reasons, but I simplified it for the article. Guard Marshall Yanda was drafted in the 3rd round of the 2007 draft, while other guard Matt Skura was signed as an undrafted free agent in 2016. Bradley Bozeman is in his 2nd year, drafted out of Alabama in the 6th round of 2018. So, important to note is that when you're looking at offensive linemen and you're looking at interior linemen can be found later in the draft than tackles. So when you look at this model of how the Ravens built their offensive line, you've got a 3rd round pick, a undrafted free agent, and a 6th round pick manning the interior of the line. And part of that reason is that they are not on an island as much as tackles, which is part of the value of the tackle, and part of why a tackle will be drafted in the 1st or 2nd round, essentially, as you find your tackles in the 1st and 2nd round as a general principle. You can find Trent Brown of the now Raiders from the Patriots. I believe he was like a 5th or 6th round pick, something later in the draft. Don't quote me on it. But you can find guys later, like here, Orlando Brown, right? So we're looking at this matchup this weekend, and I see some things that the Ravens have an advantage on, or not an advantage, but the potential to stop a historic, to overpower, and maybe overpower is the wrong word, but to succeed against what is now being proven to be a historic defense. And I'm sorry if my nose is my chest. I'm a little congested this week, so I'm dealing with that. So if you see me keep scratching my nose and keep sniffling this week, I'm having a rough go of it with the temperature finally falling for fall. Unfortunately, here in Texas, it was 30 degrees this morning, which is exactly what I ran away from in New Jersey. So anyway, according to Josh Hermsmeyer, heading into the Browns game, the Patriots ranked 7th in the NFL in blitzes with 82 and 1st in defensive expected points added on those plays at 30.2. The high EPA is in large part due to their league-leading 5 interceptions off the blitz, and they have a positive EPA on 70.7% of blitzes, which is 17% over league average. So they're highly successful blitzing. This offensive line will hopefully protect Jackson, hopefully for Ravens fans, hopefully protect Jackson, hopefully give him enough time to execute play-action passes. The weakness in the Patriots defense is their run defense. They're ranked 20th in the NFL according to PFF. tied with the Chargers with a grade of 66.8 through 8 weeks. The Patriots rank 4th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed at just 85 per game, but they're 21st in yards per carry at 4.6. They have the least rushing attempts against them in the NFL at just 18.5 per game, which is a sign of them playing from ahead and teams passing the ball more often because of the situation rather than the effectiveness of the defense in stopping the run. Playing from ahead, the team now has one more sack, 31, and one more interception, 19, than the team had last year during a Super Bowl winning season when they had a great defense that ranked 7th in the NFL in points allowed. Their 25 takeaways are just 3 less than their 16-game pace, and for last year. So I mean, they're on a roll clearly. The matchup this weekend is the newest attempt at a team to dethrone Belichick, and what we're seeing in terms of the offense is we're seeing similar to on that dethrone topic, right? We saw what happened with the Rams last year in the Super Bowl, and an offense that was so good during the season that everyone in the NFL seemed to want to get their own Sean McVay. But here's an important principle of how Bill Belichick builds his entire team, and specifically this year we could see an example of it on his defense. Looking at the Patriots team texture section at overthecap.com, they again have the most players on low-cost veteran cap hits and the highest percent of their spending going to these positions in the NFL. They did the same thing last year. Low-cost veteran cap hits are classified as at $4.45 million or below, and the Patriots have 21 of them with 23.3% of the cap going to these players. Those 21 players consume an average of 1.1% of the cap, which is just about $2.1 million per player. Not an expensive rate in the NFL. Not an expensive rate for a highly valued veteran, and we'll get into some of those right here. Cornerback Jason McCourty has a cap hit of $4.25 million this year and is PFF's 7th rated cornerback through 8 weeks. Jonathan Jones consumes $2.7 million, and is ranked as the 2nd best cornerback in the league. Stephon Gilmore is a big money signing, and he's ranked, and everyone's talking about the great season he's having, and he ranks 20th per PFF. The safeties, they lead a pass coverage unit that is leading the NFL with a 93.2 PFF grade. The pass rush is 6th in the NFL despite trading away Chandler Jones and letting Trey Flowers walk in free agency. Belichick has frequently shown that he believes what the analytics community has recently adopted after research through the way he spends his money. Pass coverage is more important than pass rush. Gilmore's deal is $13 million per year. In a stagnant quarterback market, the year after Josh Norman signed a $15 million per year deal with the Redskins. Devin McCourty was signed to a 5-year deal worth $9.5 million per season in 2015 at a time when the safety market was, in my opinion, severely undervalued. I believe the safety market was like around $10 million at the time he signed the deal. It was kind of set by Earl Thomas's 2014 contract, if I recall correctly. It was a $10 million deal, and the safety market has since increased to right around where the cornerback market is, which I think is important. I think the safety market is the safety is a highly valuable piece. They can oftentimes be tasked with covering a tight end, and if you don't have someone who can cover a tight end, you can get severely exposed come playoff time, and you run into a Travis Kelce, a Zach Ertz in the Super Bowl, a George Kittle in the Super Bowl. Speaking from the Patriots' perspective, right? Jamie Collins accounts for just $3 million in this year's cap. He's PFF's 4th highest rated linebacker. Defensive end John Simon is PFF's 26th rated edge rusher on a 2-year deal worth just $4.15 million. Special teamers like Matt Slater and Brandon Bolden have cap hits of $2.9 and $1.7 million this year. And an important part of any organization is the special teams, and Belichick has always understood that. his belief in this era of limited practice time, but even before then, is that a team needs experience, and he's always found that experience via keeping cap costs at the top of the cap low outside of Tom Brady and a couple other key players all on reasonable contracts. And then he'll build out the roster with the experienced and talented players that he finds on the proverbial scrap heap. If someone's only paying someone $4 million in this low veteran contract range, I mean, that's a different class of player. And Belichick has clearly figured out the top of the class or the guys that, fit what he's going to do and, figures out how to utilize them. Parcells is quoted as saying that Belichick has an encyclopedia in his head of past players and how current players compare, and how a current player may compare, which allows him to slot players into roles that they excel in, which allows him, being the crazy film addict that he is. I mean, it's been his reputation since he started in the NFL in the 1970s, is that he is someone who is dedicated to the practice of analyzing film. And what I would imagine the process is that, and especially so, remember when he signed Chris Hogan after he had a few good games against them, and he realized that this was a player that he could utilize, and in 2016, he utilized him quite well as he was PFF's single best go route runner in the NFL. So he had the highest grade on all go routes. And that was essentially what Belichick had him do, run deep routes. And I think that Hoagie had like 17.9 yards per catch that season, just indicative of the style of offense, right? I mean, of the role he was in, right? And so this goes all the way back in terms of finding these players. It goes all the way back to the 2001 team that was filled with low-cost veterans like Roman Pfeiffer, Teddy Bruschi, Troy Brown, and Antoine Smith, Otis Smith, and more, that produced results that would far outpace their costs. It also helps when your own players come back after seeing money elsewhere, like Collins or Bolden. Not really Bolden, but Collins especially. He's phenomenal at targeting players undervalued because of age, injuries they can recover from, being used in the wrong system, or other reasons. The other thing about his philosophy is that he can kick the tires on a Demaryius Thomas to see what he's worth, to see if he's worth it with very little risk comparatively. He'll cost $1.8 million in dead money against the cap, and the team has an unusually high $21.5 million in dead money this year, with $5.75 million on Antonio Brown and $3.6 million on Michael Bennett of Las Vegas police hoax, racism, fame. I believe no one in the mainstream media. Michael Bennett is. I saw a story about him. This is off topic, but I saw a story about him this week that he was sitting in the locker room during Patriots national anthems, and I saw something about the Cowboys now saying that he won't have that problem here. Listen, you want to profess your freedom of speech and your freedom to sit inside and not take part in the national anthem, that's fine. But when you are someone who has been caught on camera committing a race hoax, you should shut up. Like you're not the guy, dude. Like, you don't have the character to be that guy. And it's a constant with Michael Bennett. He's probably my least favorite person in the NFL because he's lauded by people in, I'm going to sound like a right-wing person, in liberal sports. We all know it's not even liberal, because I'm a liberal. In progressive sports media, Michael Bennett is consistently lauded because he has the right professed opinions. Not because standing up for opinions or standing up for what you believe is right is only okay in sports media, progressive sports media, if you stand up for the right opinions. And Michael Bennett, no matter what he does outside of professing the right opinions, no matter if he claims that 3 minority police officers from the Las Vegas Police Department are racist for following him or for detaining him after he ran from what they perceived to be a scene of a shooting. He ran, they detained him he ran because he thought there was gunfire. They detained him. There was no big issue, and then he releases some statement about racism. This was previous to last season or the year before. I don't like that. It's negative. And it's all. And this is important to understand with the NBA and China stuff, because we're seeing it. It's the greatest example that we've seen of this yet. Is that the people who claim they stand for stuff, most of the time, most of these guys that are most of these corporate guys, because a lot of these athletes are corporate guys. One thing I love about the UFC is that there's very little corporatism there. UFC fighters are, Nate Diaz, it's not very corporate. You can be whatever you want to be in the UFC. So these guys are part of this, the NBA going to China. All this talk about how bad Donald Trump is, and then LeBron goes to China and he shuts up. He talks about Daryl Morey, that he's uneducated on what's going on in China, the Hong Kong stuff. These guys don't really stand for anything. They stand for professing opinions that will get them attention, and attention equals money. Attention equals fame. Attention equals all these things. So it's not about the right thing. Michael Bennett's whole thing is about Michael Bennett, and that's it. So I'm glad that he got released by the Patriots. I'm glad Bill Belichick didn't put up with his shit. And again, he can go sit inside the locker room if he wants, but anyone can go sit in the locker room if they want. But when it comes to Michael Bennett, shut up. Just stop. Like, you're not the guy. You don't have the character to be the guy. So just shut up and dribble, essentially. Just like LeBron said, I won't shut up and dribble. Michael Bennett, it's shut up and dribble time, because no one wants to hear your opinion other than people who are incapable of being objective about a scenario and saying that this guy is an asshole, because Michael Bennett is an asshole. There's more proof of that considering what he did at Houston Energy Stadium regarding the security guard that was I guess it was a paraplegic security guard or something like that, which is a paraplegic security guard is a very funny, interesting concept. I'm not gonna lie about that, but he did some kind of nonsense where he bullied and he said, "Do you know who I am?" type of thing. Don't like the guy. Moving on. The result of Bill Belichick's philosophy is that in 2018 is that his defense is filled with veterans. There are 0 defensive starters, according to Pro Football Reference's take on defensive starters. There are 0 defensive starters under the age of 26. The defense now has 21 players with over 100 snaps, which is about 20% of snaps, which, as Bill Barnwell points out, is a number that most teams would only hit by midseason if they were riddled with injuries. But this is by choice. Only Devin McCourty and Stephon Gilmore are playing more than 80% of snaps. Of the 23 players who have played defense this year in 5,411 potential snaps across the defense, 1,261 snaps have gone to 9 players on their rookie contracts, which is 23.3% of snaps have gone to rookie contract players. The top 7 players in snap percentage are all veterans, which are essentially the players of their defensive backfield, their pass coverage. The McCourty brothers, Gilmore, Collins, linebacker Kyle Van Noy, Jonathan Jones, and Duron Harmon. Like I discussed in Caponomics Building Super Bowl Champions, they cycle through their defensive linemen to keep them fresh and explosive throughout the game. This year, the team is doing it more than ever. And this is part of why they don't spend a lot of money on pass rushers, because this is a very successful philosophy that I've seen the Patriots use, the Eagles use. Obviously, those two teams are top of the heap type organizations, and I'll get further into. I'll check out the Ravens later and kind of look at their history of that too, to get a perspective on another one of. If you had top 5 organizations for the last 20 years, just off the top of my head, right? Like, who would you say? Patriots, right? Patriots are obvious. Patriots. You've got the Eagles. They have won Super Bowl, but they've been competitive under Andy Reid, they've been competitive for a long time. And the Ravens are up there. Who else we got? We got the Broncos are a team that's in that mix. The Steelers, of course, right? Steelers are one of those teams. Man, Packers. I mean, there's 5 or 6 teams that jump out to you. Vikings are a team that's up there. They haven't been at that competitive level competing for a Super Bowl type of situation, but they're in that ballpark of like a team that's got a winning percentage of like 550 or above. So when you look at what those teams do over time, I think that's a great way to really understand and analyze what good organizations do and how they're successful. So this year, the Patriots defensive line is cycling through more than ever, more than I've ever seen, and I've been watching what they do for quite a few years now. Their defensive line has 7 or 8 players, depending on what you classify Shalik Calhoun as, playing 22 to 49% of snaps. So you don't spend a lot of money on a defensive end because you can get a bunch of fresh legs cycling through there. And it's interesting where you see that their top 7 guys in terms of snaps are essentially their pass coverage guys, speaking to what Belichick surely believes in terms of coverage and rush and investments. And then you've got the defensive line has just this cycle through situation. Experience and the potential versatility created via the experience, plus talent and athleticism of their defensive players is the base principle of this defense. There's continuity as well. Dave Archibald pointed out to me that outside of Collins, the top 15 players in defensive snaps have all returned. 10 of these 15 players, which now includes Collins, have spent 3 or more years with the team. The result of this has been a season similar to the strategy Belichick implemented to confuse Rams quarterback Jared Goff in the Super Bowl. Now, so to stop the Rams offense that inspired teams across the NFL to hire their own Sean McVays, the Patriots put 6 men on the defensive line with 1 linebacker in the middle, almost a bit of a goal line defensive front to stop a running game that was strategically crafted to take advantage of defensive boxes with 6 or less men. A Patriots defense that played more man defense than anyone else in the NFL during the season ran zone on 40% of plays in the game, which made the relatively inexperienced Goff more hesitant with his reads, especially because nothing about the defense was like what he had seen on film. The third-year quarterback was overwhelmed, and his indecisiveness gave the 6-man defensive line more time to generate pressure. He was, and I think he was like 3 for 13 for like 42 yards and an interception or something like that against pressure, and just the confusion gave the pass rush more time to get home, and which speaks to again the pass rush. The pass rush pass coverage debate. The coverage is good, confuses him. That confusion, right? I mean, it's the difference between the league is slanting a lot towards getting rid of the ball quickly in less than 2.5 seconds. Any confusion that slows him down for that much, just that much, puts the quarterback in a position where he's now more at risk for getting sacked or getting pressure on him. So this strategy of ultimate confusion has carried over into this season, and it plays well against the most valuable asset in the NFL today, the biggest threat to the Patriots' throne: high-value, highly productive rookie contract quarterbacks. Without the experience that a veteran has, a myriad of different defensive looks can be incredibly confusing on a play-to-play basis, and all the Patriots defense needs is a player or two to swing the game. This is obviously a roster that's good on offense, good on defense. I think they're first in the NFL in both categories in terms of scoring offense, scoring defense. So you make a mistake, defense capitalizes or confuses you into making one, and they can do that really regardless of experience level. So that's about all quarterbacks. So Barnwell writes that Belichick's defense is continuing to blend and blur the line between man and zone coverage to trick quarterbacks who are depending on differentiating between one or the other pre-snap to make post-snap decision. When he does go man, he's able to rely on elite defenders to allow him to create a numbers advantage in the pass rush. Further, Barnwell discovered that the Patriots have allowed a passer rating of just 23.5 and 0 high coverage in a league in which no other team is below a rating of 50.5 106.0, and the league average is 104.4. Think about that. Their passer rating is 23.5, which is worse than it would be if you, I believe it's worse than it would be if you just threw the football into the ground. No team has blitzed more frequently without safety help, which has led to 8 sacks and 17 hurries out of the look, second behind the Minnesota Vikings. Can the Ravens offense make enough plays to beat this historic Patriots defense? Can they minimize mistakes? Can they make the right play calls in the right situations often enough to catch this defense at a disadvantage? Something we as a collective football consciousness, including myself, continuously undervalue in this sport is the value of coaching. It's why my belief that the Browns would be good this year, based on this generated the analytics-based team-building solution that they created, it seemed to fail because they don't have the right coach, and the right coach is key. On Sunday night, we'll see if John Harbaugh and his trusted lieutenant, Greg Roman, and his favorite chess piece, Lamar Jackson, are prepared to engage in an intellectual battle with the greatest intellectual the sport of football has ever seen. So, I mean, we're just looking at a team that trying to run something new, trying to confuse the king, and, they might get 2 cracks at it. So it's going to be what we fail to really spotlight. We spotlight what happens on the field, but what's happening right now? Today's Thursday. What's happening right now? The coaches' meetings, the players' meetings, the practice. This is, they're setting the tone. They're setting the stage for what's going to happen on Sunday. So, if we're looking at, the, both sides of this battle, this game, this intellectual battle. They both are in a position where they're trying to outsmart the other guy, and we'll see that play out on Sunday, and we'll see who makes the right move, and we'll see what they learn, and we'll see if they get it cracking again in January, when they meet in the playoffs. So, thank you for taking the time to listen. Again, you can follow me at overthecap.com. You can buy my book, Caponomics: Building Super Bowl Champions. And you can follow me on Twitter at Zach Moore NFL, and you can subscribe to support the podcast. You can subscribe to the Zach Moore Show. You can subscribe, download, automatic download, and give a 5-star rating, and it would be much appreciated. I look forward to talking to you guys again soon. There's some stuff I've been thinking about with the Vikings, with the 49ers, a lot on my mind, and then there's also this piece that I wrote recently about the ownership and the way that owners are able to take advantage of players and all sorts of stuff, and proper value. But there is one more thing that I had right here, is that I wanted to say, is that from Caponomics, I have it right here. Belichick and Mike Lombardi of his recent Gridiron Genius book, they put together the Belichick's first scouting manual in Cleveland. But by the time they had started to figure out, they'd been fired. And Belichick condenses objectives into, do these 3 things and we should be in a position to win. With Lombardi, they realized that the 3 traits that they needed to be a part of their players' profiles were, they made player profiles for the scouting manual, were intelligence, power, and versatility. Belichick needs players who have the intelligence to understand the system and each week's game plan, the explosive power to execute the tasks required, and the ability to make their team more versatile. In this case that we're talking about right now, piece of that versatility is their experience and is their intelligence. So Belichick is, this is all part of his philosophy, all part of building a team around veterans, and it's really, it's always interesting to learn more about the game by learning more about what Belichick thinks. So thanks for taking the time to listen. I look forward to talking to you guys again soon, and have a great weekend. If I don't talk to you, have a great weekend watching the games.